Hello again, folks. Welcome to Awakening Astrology course. And today we are going to do how the 12 elements interact with each other. And the key portion of this is that everything interacts with each other, and you're allowed to look at it anytime you want. That's just the thing. So here we go. Starting from Aries, I'll go in a circle with the different 12 elements, so starting with fire, and seeing how they affect each other. So first, I'll start with how fire affects nature and how fire affects spirit. Nature being the sign Taurus, spirit being the sign Pisces. And I pretty much look at this in like as much of a physical, scientific level as I can, given my limited perception of these different parts of reality. I still obviously don't know everything about how these things would interact in actuality, but we have a general sense. Because, like, think of a bunch of fire in nature, it usually burns everything. So we can understand that a lot of fire might affect nature in a negative or adverse way. What does like a little bit of fire do? What does like tamed, controlled fire do? It creates light, it creates warmth, it creates kind of happiness and like compassion. Um, and so that type of like fire in nature can enliven nature. You can even think of fantastical ecosystems with fireflies and the moonlight and like different tribal folk having like fire dances to keep warm and like improve their spirit. um, Anything. Today we have fire in the form of electricity, in the form of light, in the form of our heaters and fireplaces. And so that's one way in which you can see how fire will affect nature. And there's many other ways fire can affect nature. And then we can look at how does fire affect spirit. Spirit's kind of nothing. It's not really anything. Fire doesn't actually affect spirit at all. Spirit gives space for fire. Fire can send things to spirit by destroying them, but fire doesn't actually touch spirit except in the sense that every single thing is a part of spirit and touches spirit. And so it's interesting, the directionality of effect you can see is fire would flow into nature rather than into spirit. Like in a forest fire, the fire just spreads. It just keeps going. Just like oh, there's some more stuff over here, and oh, there's some more stuff over here, and then they just burn it up and destroy everything. And so we're going to go in this direction because of how these different elements interact. And this is just a intuitive way to flow with this. Um, and so then we can go on to see how does nature affect fire? How does nature affect sound? As we saw with fire affecting nature, fire can be very deadly or negative towards nature in high, aggressive, unkept forms, but can be very lovely in more kept forms. How does nature affect fire? Nature feeds fire. Nature fuels fire. Nature, the more nature there is, the higher probability that there's fire, it seems like. Because there's more things interacting, the friction's greater, there's more like things bouncing around, things are creating sparks, things can tangle, and it just can create more chaos in general. And fire happens in higher friction, higher bouncing around of atoms. It's kind of what it is. It's just really fast that compared to the other aspects of reality that aren't moving that fast. Um, if you have like a heat in a room, imagine if you concentrated all that heat. What you're doing is you're concentrating an energy wavelength that creates a relation between molecules. So there is no actual heat. The heat is just how the molecules interact together. And so with fire, you can condense it and it creates like a sun or a flame, or you can spread it out and that creates like heat or a sauna. And then that's easier to deal with. It doesn't destroy things, it spreads out. So nature both offers fuel for fire, but it also offers space for fire, and it kind of offers new forms of fire. It offers diversity for fire. So nature's very loving towards the energy fire. It offers it a whole bunch of new life. How does nature affect sound? Sound and fire are kind of similar. Sound is also molecules bouncing around, creating waves in relation to other molecules. You might even say that the same thing at a different intensity. Not going to make that claim for sure. That's just a little theory I have under my thumb. It's my thumb. So how does nature affect sound? Well, nature creates sound, kind of. Depends on your perspective. Some people say sound created everything. The Om created everything. I don't have a lot of evidence of this, but that's some perspective. So nature can create sound, or nature can give life to many forms of sound. Maybe sound created nature. Maybe sound is just an extrapolation of vibration in and of itself, and nature is the manifestation of vibration. So maybe sound actually feeds nature. Or if we look at it on the more reductionist view, nature's creating sound, at least from our perspective usually, without getting too abstract. And the more nature we have, the more sound we have. And the less nature we have usually, the less sound we have. But it's also about harmony. The more harmonious the nature, the nicer the sound. The more chaotic the nature, the more abrasive the sound, And that's another part of all these elements. It's another part of reality, is that when we can look at things in a physical way, but there's always going to be subtler, more beautiful layers that aren't so easily described with physical characteristics. Because what is a harmonious nature? A harmonious nature in some eyes will be different than in other eyes, and it's really just a feeling. It's like when you look at the sun and you happen to be feeling good at the same time, or you look at anything and you're feeling good, like that. Yeah, that feeling good, that's the harmony. And that's going to create beautiful sound. And as you could tell with the fire, as I said with the heat isn't anything. It's just a type of interrelations between physical components or molecules. Nature is a manifestation of all these different interactions and wavelengths in the universe. Sound is kind of like what emanates from the physical manifestation, and it's all these things interacting. And so let's move on to sound. How does sound affect nature, and how does sound affect water? Well, sound can give emotions to nature. Sound can give can show us the layer below the physical. This sound gives us so friggin' much. Pretty much everybody loves music. The people that say they don't, I don't trust them. No offense if you're out there, but I know you like music sometimes. Everybody loves music. Music's beautiful. It's tons of different types, for all different occasions, for all sorts of different emotions. And that's what sound offers nature. That's how sound interacts with nature. Sound brings the deeper layers of reality into the forefront, into the moment. And that it can change depending on the interrelation of all the nature parts, the interrelation of people and animals and plants, and if there's tension and suffering and pain and pulling and pushing and all that stuff. And the sound will reflect the deeper layer of reality that nature is doing. And that's Gemini is the communicator, the dialogue, the twins, the talker, the thinker. It will express through voice the natural order, which is just the world that it's in, that the person's in, that the twins are in, Taurus, nature. And then we move on to the next sign. How does Gemini, or how does sound affect water or the moon or Cancer? Just giving us a quick like reference back to which signs these are, just in case it's slipped people's minds. Um, Sound affects water in a really beautiful way. I unfortunately forget the scientist's name, but there's a Japanese scientist that did a lot of study on water to see how our sound, how our intention, how our vibration interacts with it. And he found some really beautiful things. When you're negative, when you're mean, when you have abrasive sounds interacting with water, their molecules get all asymmetrical and like jagged and not just not beautiful, just not like what am I looking at? It looks like blobs and like broken things. And then when you play like a mandala song, like or the sound om, or you say I love you, or you say nice things to the water, it has this perfect like symmetrical star snowflake fractal shape, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, and it creates a different effect in the world and in our bodies when it comes into us, based on how sound affects it. And so sound, like with nature, pulling out the lower layer and like giving it to the world, water absorbs that, absorbs the sound and reflects it, mirrors it. And if the sound's like, "Ah," the water's gonna be like, "Ah." But if the sound's like, ah, the water's gonna be like, mm. And that's just how water works. Water just goes where it's supposed to go. It just fits to the environment. We know that. You drop water, it just goes right down and then floods the floor. It doesn't like chill in one spot, and it's like kind of like here more. No, water has no preference, and that's why it absorbs sound and the environment and moves around it. So it's like, in a way, you can see it as like it's not even necessarily absorbing sound. It is just reacting to sound. And that's how it moves around sound. Like it moves around valleys and rocks like this. It moves around sound by altering its molecular shape. Um, just one way to look at it. It's not absolute that is the right way to look at it. It's just you can see how there's just like the mind can pull in and out of different dimensions of reality, and seeing how those dimensions interplay with each other, and breaking down internal boundaries. This is what this practice does, is when you take down internal walls relating to this practice in this creative game, and then that habit of breaking down internal walls will bleed into your entire existence forever, and you'll break down other people's walls, and you'll break down walls in other aspects of your life, and it'll brighten up your life, and you'll be able to see things with more creativity and light. That's what I'm hoping to resonate with you beautiful people. uh, this is me reacting to the universe, to the stars, to the information at hand. I mean, it's me being watery in some ways. Me with my moon in Taurus being very emotional and receptive. Finding a beautiful, fun, colorful way to communicate infinite consciousness to you guys, to myself, to the universe. Water is here to give us this life. Astrology is here to give us this life. Chemistry is here to give us this life. Fitness is here. Everything that we have is here to give us life. That it's like no one is better than the other, and they're all a part of the same universe. And this quality of water is reflected in this. Water is unbiased. We can make our mind unbiased in certain ways so that we can experience new levels of feeling in mind. So let's continue. Let's continue. How does water affect sound, and how does water affect light? This one's interesting. Like, water affects sound. Well, we said it kind of absorbs it or like reacts to sound, and it also dampens it. Like if you shoot sound at water and you had like a speaker under the water, it will not sound like the way you heard it. It wouldn't. because the water molecule environment is very, very different than the gaseous air environment that we're in. And the way the molecules interact will produce different waves, and it will produce a different sound. So water changes sound. What does the water do to light? It kind of changes it too. It reflects it, like kind of reflects it a bit. It alters it, and it alters both things. So it's, even though water is like unbiased in its kind of essence as it moves around things and just reacts to everything that's there, it's also changing everything that's there when it goes into it. Once light goes into water, it is no longer the exact same type of light that was in the air. Once sound goes into water, it's no longer the same sound that we heard in the air. So that's just one way you can see how water interacts with these different things. As with the planets, you can see that maybe the sun, how the sun interacts with the moon. The moon changes the sun's light. How does the moon interact with sound? That one I'm not too much sure, not as certain about. But how does the moon interact with communication, Mercury, dialogue? Because the moons are like an emotional layer, it kind of brings substance to our interactions, substance to our communication. Nobody likes small talk. Nobody just likes the empty words that we're all throwing around all the time. Like, there's literally no, like, not to scare anybody, but there's people that kill themselves because they don't want to go to work and do small talk. That's how much small talk there is. And so the moon, the emotions, the sensitivity, the receptivity, that gives life, substance, integrity, and beauty to words, to meaning, to interaction, communication, to sound. And then we can move on to light. How does light interact with water? How does light interact with electricity, which is Virgo? Light interacts with water by heating it, warming it, giving it life. It kind of cleanses it. Medicines are made from just sitting water with like a crystal in it in the sun, and they'll heal people's diseases. The sun is a lot of beautiful energy, so many different wavelengths that we have yet to been able to produce through our lights and our technology. And water absorbs this energy, these layers, and holds it. So sun gives love, gives light, gives energy to water, and water holds it, like gracefully receives it, which is beautiful, because the sun is the masculine, the moon is the feminine, and the sun is the giver, the moon is the receiver. And you can see even on the layer of light and water, this is still playing, and you'll see this through every layer of reality. It's all working together, it all makes sense. We just have to trust that it makes sense, and that we can see that it makes sense. And so how does light affect electricity? Well, light kind of creates electricity. In a way, it's hard to tell, like, would we create electricity if we didn't have any light? Would we even exist if we didn't have any light? You know, like, electricity is us imitating light in a way. It's us imitating the sun, trying to be our own guide of reality, trying to control the universe. And so how does electricity affect light? Electricity can create light. Electricity can drown light out as well. You know, our electricity creates so much light, we create light pollution. And then the starlight doesn't reach us. Funny little side note is that opposite Leo, which I have as light, is Aquarius. And in tarot, Aquarius is the star, and the stars are the same as the sun. It's just all of them rather than one of them. And Aquarius deals with equality rather than hierarchies. Just a nice little side note of connection that I thought there that I didn't want to not share. So yeah, electricity can create light pollution. It can dampen natural light. So electricity is kind of like, it's here to help us in our temporary desires, but sometimes it will repress or push other light away in exchange for itself. At the same time, electricity can be used to keep us warm, to keep us intelligent, to help us get things done. Um, and this, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative relation towards light in any way. How does electricity affect air? They're kind of neutral. They assist each other. Like electricity goes through air, and air offers space for electricity. They don't really do anything else together. They don't it's when electricity interacts with some kind of element other than air, like earth or minerals or water or some kind of like dust or something, that it creates a spark or that something else happens. So it's cool. And Libra and Virgo are the most selfless of all the signs. They are the most like, no, you go first. No, you go first. And so that's what they do. No, you go first, and no, you go first. So electricity just goes through our air environment on a daily basis, usually static electricity, and it doesn't bother air, and air doesn't bother it. How does air affect darkness? Air and darkness are kind of in a similar boat as electricity and air. They don't they're on different layers of reality. They don't obstruct each other really, and they don't assist each other. In relation to darkness, like air in a dark space can feel haunting. It can feel scarier, but that's the effect of darkness. Air will fill empty spaces. If you want to like extrapolate darkness as also emptiness, air moves into darkness in some ways. How does darkness affect air? Because the only really by being a lack of light, it will change the temperature of air. It'll change the qualities of air. Sometimes you don't necessarily see very obvious interactions between these few elements. That can either be a sign of one, maybe there's a more important element that I'm missing that I didn't see when I constructed the chart, or maybe the things don't always need to interact in the way that we expect. Darkness interacts with thunder in a kind of harmonious way. They kind of go together. Like it's never a sunny day and it's like lightning out. It's just not the way things usually work. And when that's the case, it's rare and it's awesome. Um, but usually thunder and lightning, they're big and expansive. They cover a lot of space, and they bring darkness with it. It's like they transmute that light into their own hyper version of light. Cool thing about thunder and lightning is that it's the opposite of Gemini, which is sound. Gemini is kind of like local travel, like short-term travel, and Sagittarius is long-term foreign large travel. And that's hilarious because thunder's like one of the biggest sounds we got. It's beautiful that these were placements that I found more so than decided. They were already related to these elements in many different texts, in many different looser ways, rather than just like, here's the four elements that everything is. People have extrapolated that Gemini relates to sound and Sagittarius relates to thunder and lightning. So it's just beautiful how this is still reflected in this other layer of like creative interpretation. Sagittarius is big sound, just as much as it's big travel. And so yeah, for thunder and darkness, they assist each other. They bring each other to life. The darker it is, the more you can see the lightning. The more lightning and thunder is, the darker it's probably going to be. They love each other. In like the essence of the sign's qualities, Scorpio is about letting go, embracing death, transforming so that you can evolve. And Sagittarius is about searching and exploring to get deeper truths. And these both go hand in hand. We need to explore the darkness to find greater truth. Thunder affects Earth by that it doesn't actually affect Earth. You know, like when you look at Pokemon, you know, like what like lightning affects ground? No, never works. Don't ever use lightning against ground Pokemon. You know, same here. Sagittarius doesn't do shit to Capricorn. Sagittarius, like it's that expansive, boisterous, booming energy that's trying to find the greater truths of reality. But Capricorn's just the simple structure that is reality. So it's like it can't be phased by trying to search for itself. Um, that may not have made sense, but it's like the simplicity of Earth and the structure of reality is not going to be affected by thunder and searching and quests and adventure. It's still going to be the structure of reality. And that Earth is still going to be Earth, even though there's going to be lightning and thunder. It's still going to be a beautiful orb rock rotating around a beautiful star. Um, but Earth makes the atmosphere for thunder and lightning to happen. The structure of reality offers us the free will and infinite mind to explore it, basically. And that's what Earth does with thunder. That's what Capricorn does with Sagittarius. That's what structure does with exploration. And you can see how this is those were all different ways of interpreting these signs and how they interact, and they interact flawlessly on each layer. And that's you can see you'll as you do astrology, as you keep opening your mind and seeing how the pieces and the dots connect, you'll see all these different connections. And it's never about being like, I found a connection, I'm writing it down, and I'm telling people that it's this connection, and I'm never changing it. That's not what we do. We just make connections all the time like crazy and never stop. That's what we do, because we're never holding on to any insight we had. It's never some gem that's gonna like bring us like hope. It's just continually trying to get to our best self by being different and breaking free from habits and patterns. And we got to do that in so many layers of our life. I'm not going to yell at you to tell you to stop, to change all your habits, but I'm going to show you how to do astrology so that when it comes time to change those habits, you, in an interesting way, have a tool to do it inside this chart of stars. Um, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this. And then how does Earth affect ether, which is Aquarius? Earth is a part of ether. Earth is like one thing floating in the ether of space. Ether is kind of it's like think of it as a mist that goes through everything. And that's what ether is. But it's like this universe is ether, it's energy. And then like another membrane will have its own ether. You know, a person's aura is kind of like its ether. A tree will have certain like patterns of air flowing in and out of its cells, and it creates an energy wave, and that's its ether. It's an airy element, but it's not the physical air. So Earth doesn't affect ether in any critical sense other than giving it diversity, giving it a place for ether to kind of express itself and be. Ether gives space for Earth, actually. Ether allows for Earth and structure to come about. As I said before, like some people think sound created everything first. My going belief is consciousness created everything first, which is spirit, which is Pisces, and that's kind of where everything comes from, is the other world, the spirit world, the beyond, the infinite, the thing that we don't know, and we're pretty damn certain that we don't know it, but we know that we know that we don't know it. And we can go into those crazy philosophical knowledge ontology loops as much as we want, but I'm going to stop here for today. So this is how all these different 12 elements interact. They're just like major qualities of each of the signs and planets that relate to them. They're not necessarily set in stone. They're not, you can veer from the path and interpret them your own way. And that's the whole point of this, is the creative, intuitive journey, expanding your consciousness, understanding how the universe works. And I hope this helped you. I hope this was enjoyable. And there's no homework today. Peace and love.